Good morning, my beautiful babes and babettes. I'm your resident active advocate, and I'm going to take a lighter tone today than I did yesterday, and I'm also not going to have to age restrict this one because my topic of choice for today is whether people with heritable disabilities should choose to have children. All right. Now, this is not a legal matter. This is a matter of personal choice. Heritable disabilities are those that are passed on genetically, as the name implies. And in terms of various disabilities, the rate at which they are passed on varies greatly. For example, it is much easier to have a deaf child if you are yourself deaf. Not as easy with vision, not as easy with any other physical disability. For example, if you are a wheelchair user, you will not necessarily have a child who is also a wheelchair user from birth, like not able to learn how to walk, that kind of thing. Now, though, this is a greater, quote, problem when it comes to intellectual and emotional disabilities. So some of the most heritable disabilities are bipolar depression, unipolar depression, and schizophrenia, okay? Genetically speaking, there is almost a 100% link between whether you have schizophrenia versus one of your parents has schizophrenia. It is extremely heritable. So that is also the case for depression, both bi and unipolar depression, but the link is somewhat weaker. Schizophrenia is definitely the highest of those three, and that's why I mentioned those three. But the whole idea behind personal choice is whether you are willing to risk your child inheriting your disability. It's wise, I think, to do research when going into this because, like I say, the rate at which certain disabilities are inherited differs between disabilities. But this also does not rule out the possibility of the child not inheriting the disability or disorder that you have. Okay, these things are always basically a numbers game, right? And the whole issue is, do I want to risk even the slightest possibility that my child would be born inheriting the disability that I have? Especially when it's something that society views as being very serious, and that is especially true of mental health disorders. Schizophrenia used to be looked upon as a literal curse. And this is where we get into the, quote, moral model of disability, that one is, quote, cursed by their disability and by the, quote, sins of the father. And that whole thing that we talked about ages ago with the moral model of disability that comes out of the Bible in the Judeo-Christian tradition and out of many other sacred texts as well. As society advances, however, and gets more and more scientific and more scientifically literate, we do tend, as a society, to edge away from the moral model. However, the moral model is still very much present in our society, and we need to recognize the fact that it is there. Other people would judge you harshly, most likely, for wanting to have a child at all, even if there is only, like 0.02% chance that your child could inherit your disability or disorder. However, that said, I have 3 disabilities to which it has never been proved on my genome that there is any genetic link whatsoever. So no matter who you are, and no matter who your partner is, there's always a chance that your child will be born with a disability or several disabilities, as I was. These things can be foreseen with the technology that we have now, but it's very difficult to prevent them in utero. except for, as I said yesterday, the use of, say, folic acid to prevent neural tube defects, such as my hydrocephalus. And I also, by the way, have a very slight touch of scoliosis in my lower spine, which is also a neural tube defect. Mind you, I was born in 1990, okay? This is 2021. So technology has come much further. However, diagnosing technology has also come much further. So if doctors find in utero that your child is going to be born with a disability, what do you, as a parent, choose to do? That is entirely up to you, and more or less the law leaves that up to you as well. One thing that I really appreciate is that the law does not say you may not have a child with a disability. You may not have sexual relations with a partner who has a disability with actual heritable links. Okay, the law does not make any judgment based on that. That is a purely personal choice. I really appreciate that. At least in Canada, that is a purely personal choice. I really appreciate that because, quite frankly, the law and government can stay out of the bedroom of two consenting adults, in my opinion. But that's just me. When it comes to the sheer morality of the thing that you are doing, of risking the child being born with a disability, especially one with a very heritable link, like I say, schizophrenia, bipolar depression, unipolar depression, and also for the physical stuff, deafness is very commonly heritable. But what do you choose to do? Do you choose to see it as, quote, damning or cursing your child to be born with this particular disability or disorder? Or do you see it as something that, A, may not even be a risk, so who cares, but B, if they are born inheriting your disability, how will you treat that? Will you treat that as a curse, as I say, or will you treat that as an opportunity for you to grow as a parent and for you to help that child throughout their life? This is the moral and social element of this choice, and it's not an easy choice to make, okay? I'm not ever going to say that any of these sorts of choices are easily made, because, again, the external judgment of society is thou shalt not. And that comes from the religious background, but also comes from the fact even, and as I have said before, I have nothing against the medical model, but also comes from the fact that because medical science is advancing, and at a very rapid rate, I might add, that, quote, these things can and should be prevented, end quote. And some people think that if they can and should be prevented, that, people like that, quotation marks, don't have the right to put this on society or even to put this on an unborn child, all these different stigma that can be thrown around about this decision. However, as I say, legally, there is nothing stopping you. So, as an individual, you are the one responsible for making this choice. And I don't think, personally, I try to leave my personal opinions out of this, but personally, I don't think that this decision should be made for you by society. This is up to you, and this is up to your partner. So basically, if you are in the camp who is worried about any potential child you could have inheriting a disability that you or your partner have, that's for you guys to talk about, to discuss, to think about, and to research extensively, and to make up your own minds. And one of the greatest freedoms we have as human beings is the freedom of choice. So that's my little monologue about that for today. And as I say, I won't be putting an age restriction on this one, because I don't think it's quite as thorny as yesterday's video was. And I also think it's very important that we be aware of our choices as consenting adults having children. All right, so because I take weekends off, I will see all y'all lovely people on Monday with a new, possibly thornier topic. And that'll be fun for the whole family. Awesome. Okay. Mwah.